All right, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of Mixed Martial Arts. My name is Austin Shaper, and this is a show where we cover the topics of UAP, UFC, and World War III. Today is going to be a somewhat brief World War III episode. I got a lot going on today, so I just wanted to make this one real quick before I get my day started. It's pretty early here in the morning on Sunday, August 13th. What I wanted to discuss today, guys, let's just dive in real quick with a couple headlines. I want to discuss briefly the state of the Ukraine-Russia war and where this thing is headed and what the hell is really going on. There's so much you see online that just leaves you, I guess I should just speak from my own perspective, leaves me to be so confused as to what the reality is, as to what is going to unfold from this, the repercussions of this, the morality of this. It's a complicated, nuanced war. It really is. And I've said this in multiple videos, but I will never stop saying it, that I believe that what Russia is doing is 100% wrong and evil. If you guys see the videos of the children and the women and the old people and just the people who are being affected by this war, I think I saw a drone shot recently from the city of Bakhmut, and there is no city of Bakhmut anymore. It's just rubble. It looks like a World War II city after post-bombing. That's what it looks like. It's just nothing but rubble, and everything is destroyed, and it's heartbreaking. And I see online all the time, this has become a political issue, like almost everything in this world turns into, and people forget the morality of things. And, regardless of who you feel is right, who you feel is wrong in this war, if Russia was provoked and they're doing this for their own protection. Some people believe that, the deep state is running this and that this is all being orchestrated. Others believe that, this is a righteous war and that, while Russia is 100% wrong, on top of that, NATO would never want to affect Russia, and they're doing nothing but defensively helping Ukraine, and Ukraine is, purely a victim in this. There's many different attitudes and mindsets you see online, but at the end of the day, when you see these videos of the innocent people dying, you just have to remember what happens when the big wigs at the top of at the governments across the world make these kind of decisions to invade and just do these awful things. Who actually pays the price? It's not the people in Congress who are writing these checks. It's not the governments, it's the poor, average, everyday person who's paying the price for this war. And they are just, look around, even here in America, the most, the richest nation in the entire world. You can go to any inner city and see people starving, see homeless people everywhere, see drug addicts everywhere. Everything is just being held together by this thin veneer, and when you see things like war happen in this modern day, it's a wake-up call, and it shows you, like, these people who are in control and represent us, quote unquote, in the government, they don't give a shit about us. They don't care. They have their ulterior motives. They have motives that they're not sharing with the people who are funding the war. For example, in this Ukraine conflict, I do believe personally, this is my own personal opinion, briefly, is that, what Russia's doing is 100% wrong, whether they were provoked or not provoked. I do believe they were provoked, but that does not lead me to believe, okay, well, now you're allowed to go invade and kill people and bomb cities and daycares and schools and restaurants. No, that's fucking unacceptable. But on the flip side, what's so interesting about this is that, America sits there from this high place of authority, moral authority, saying that, we're doing this to defend democracy. We know Ukraine is not a democracy, but we're here to defend democracy and defend the people of Ukraine. I think nobody's buying that anymore. I think the average American citizen is starting to realize, okay, there's an ulterior motive here. There's a motive that they're not sharing with us as to why they're pouring money in by the billions, and it's not for moral cause. I hate to break that to you guys if you believe that America is still the righteous superpower that it once possibly was in the World War II era, defending innocents across the world. We're not that anymore. I hate to say that. I think it's depressing. I think you can argue that maybe we're still one of the better nations in the world as far as morality goes, but that's such a low bar now that, that's not really saying much. Okay, you're one of the best in a batch of bad, So while America is sitting here funding this war continuously, and, let's just read a couple of headlines here. Biden just recently asked Congress for another $24 billion for Ukraine. So we're continuing to pour the money in. You guys have obviously probably, if you're watching this video, you kind of keep up with this news, I would imagine. But we can see that the Ukrainian counteroffensive is falling flat on its face. It's not going well. It's not going according to plan. And there's probably a million different reasons for that. Logistically, the supplies aren't coming in as quickly as they want. I mean, here's just an article about the F-16 training. It says F-16 training for Ukrainian pilots faces delays and uncertainty. So they needed those jets a long time ago. They still don't have them. And now it's being delayed even farther. I was reading something, I don't want to spew the exact number because I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think it's something like only 36 Abram tanks from America are going to be delivered by, in this year. I don't know if that's 100% right, but the overall point that I'm making from that is that, the supplies that we are providing are not coming in a timely manner. They're not coming in a professional manner. They're probably not even the level of the equipment that they need. And on top of that, they don't have the personnel. Maybe they do at this moment, but as this war trickles on, this battle of attrition, it trickles on. Obviously, Ukraine has less troops than Russia by hundreds of thousands, and perhaps that they've done a great job fending them off thus far. But as this battle goes on and on and on, we can obviously see that Russia is. If this turns into a battle of attrition, it's hard for me to sit there and think that Ukraine can win a war of attrition. I don't think it's possible. And going back to my previous point about the morality of this, America is funding this for a reason that they're not telling us. I think that's what's going on. I don't know what the reason is. I don't know if it has to do with this Burisma stuff and the cover-up with Biden and the $20 million in payments they just found. I think it's the House Oversight Committee just found. So I just don't know. I rack my brain about this almost every day, but there's a reason why, and it's not the reason that they're giving us. I think you can say that with 100% certainty, and the American taxpayer, at least to my observation, is getting fed up with this. They're seeing the state of the country. They're seeing the state of everything that's going on here, and then the money is all being poured into this kind of, I can't say this with certainty, but in my gut, it feels unwinnable. It feels unwinnable unless this one key thing changes. Unless NATO, whether that be maybe just Poland, who's kind of itching to get into this war, or the United Kingdom, whoever it may be, directly gets involved and provides troops and more than just the more than just the equipment that they've been providing, which has been slow and not timely and not consistent. And that's not me saying, we need to up it up even more in the equipment. I don't know what the right move is here, but I'm just saying that if one of these NATO nations or all of them do not get directly involved, I don't know how Ukraine can possibly win this war over time. I don't see how it can happen. And that's obviously a very scary proposition because the idea of them getting directly involved is a fucking horrible idea because it goes from the potential of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people dying to millions and millions and millions when Russia and the United States or Russia and the United Kingdom, Russia and NATO as a whole go at it head to head because that's where it looks like this conflict is going. And I think a lot of people have kind of lost interest because it hasn't gone in the timeline that people expected. We see two nations go at it like this in modern day in 2023. We see a war starting and, how World War I started, how World War II started. They all kind of start here in Europe with a smaller conflict, and then the big boys get involved, the big superpowers get involved, and it spirals into absolute chaos, and that hasn't happened yet. So the timeline is a little different than what the maybe you would think from watching the movies. And that doesn't mean to say that it's not going to happen. If this continues this way, it's kind of an inevitable. I can't speak this morning. It's like 8 in the morning. It has to happen because there's no other route for it to go. There's no peace treaty to be had here. We all know that. They've tried. They failed. Neither side is willing to negotiate to the level that is required for it to actually happen. So it's all hearsay about that. And Ukraine's being propped up by NATO, but not to the degree that they can actually turn the tide. It's just that they can prolong the conflict and continue the killing. And it always leads me to sit there and question, what's the purpose here? they would say from the United States perspective that and NATO's perspective that the reason why we're doing this is because this is actually a matter of national security. By defending by defending Ukraine against Russia here, we are stopping Russia from directly being involved against the United States or becoming powerful enough that they could do something to the United States, to NATO. So it's for national security interest to protect American lives, and also it's to protect Ukrainian lives. But let's play this out here. How is that possible? Because if your goal is to protect Ukrainian lives primarily and also protect American lives or NATO lives, is that the result that we're seeing here? Do we feel safer because of this? Do we feel that Ukrainians are being saved from this? I would say the exact opposite, the exact reverse of that stated goal is what's happening. Ukrainians are directly dying because of this continued intervention by NATO, and I'm not here to argue the morality of it. I'm purely saying if a peace deal had been struck last year like it almost was, yes, it's a sad reality if Ukraine were to lose some more of its land, and I can even see the argument of why that's a bad idea because, they took Crimea in 2014, Russia did, and then, now here 9 years later, they take more land and a peace treaty is signed, and then what's that going to do? It's going to encourage Russia to go again to, stock up their soldiers, their equipment, and do it again and just keep chipping away at Ukraine. So I understand the argument for that, but just talking about the effectiveness of this plan, the Ukrainians would have had a peace deal had we not stopped it. Would it have been a good peace deal? No, it wouldn't have, but would Ukrainians have stopped dying? Yes. Civilians stopped dying? Yes. And would we have been safer here back home in America and Europe, NATO as a whole, not being on the precipice of World War III with Russia and bringing in possibly China and all the other nations, North Korea, Iran, who would all tag team on this if this turned into a bigger conflict? 100%. So that's not what's happening. What's happening is more Ukrainians. There is no peace. More Ukrainians are dying because of it. Thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands. Russian civilians as well. Not everybody, from Russia is a bad, evil Putin supporter. It's nuanced. It's complicated. There's innocence on all sides and innocent life being taken on all sides. And do you feel safer here at home? I don't. I feel like you're stoking a bear in Russia who has the most nuclear weapons on planet Earth. You're backing them into a corner and irritating the shit out of them. And while it's Russia's fault that they went ahead with the invasion, from their perspective, they didn't have another option, and that doesn't make it right. It's super wrong. But what's perplexing to me is the stated goal is the national security of Ukraine and America. But alas, nobody here is safer off because of what you're doing. Matter of fact, we're all closer to annihilation. We're all closer to the biggest nuclear power in the world using a nuclear strike, maybe even just to scare us in the sea and raise tensions and show that they're ready to step this up. Maybe they even do it to a city. I don't know. You'd have to talk to an expert about that, but I can just see the writing on the wall. We're not safer off from this. All this money, all these billions of dollars, all this tension between NATO and Russia. And, you can even bring in the other nations in that, China and North Korea, Iran, all these tensions being raised. No one is safer off for that. No lives are being saved. Lives are being wasted. So while I'm not a supporter of Russia taking more land, some sort of peace deal has to be made. That's how every war ends. It's just which party is going to give up and accept the terms quicker. And I don't see without a direct involvement how on earth Ukraine can win this war over time. Maybe they can hold out for another 6 months. Maybe they can even hold out for another year. I don't know. They have less troops. They have less equipment. How on earth can they win the war? Maybe they could push the Russians back a little bit, but as we've seen, they didn't even make it to the first of 3 defensive lines that Russia has. So they're not going to take Crimea back. It's a fairy tale. It's a fantasy. I think they tell us this stuff to convince the U.S. taxpayer to continue to fund this. I don't know what to make of it, guys. It's very complicated. It's very sad. It's very depressing, and it's very scary because this isn't a moral war. It's moral in the sense that Ukraine is an innocent country. Yes, they have corrupt politicians, as we all do. Yes, I'm sure there's all kinds of bad things happening behind the scenes and ulterior motives for this. But at the end of the day, the Ukrainian civilians are innocent in this war. So I understand the morality, and I defend Ukraine in that perspective. But what I think is wrong here, I shouldn't say wrong. What opens the door to Pandora's box, what opens the door to World War III is the actions that are being taken right now. So nobody should feel safer from this money, this $24 billion that Biden is asking for Congress. Nobody should feel safer off because of it. We should be terrified. We should be terrified. And we're getting lulled into a trance because it's just happening. Every month, more and more billions are being sent. It doesn't seem like the war is making any sort of decisive turn. It's just kind of a tit-for-tat attrition war. So it's not something that's waking us up. If anything, it's lulling us into a trance, and the American people are fed up, but what do? There's nothing to really do about it. They're going to, the American government's going to take what it's going to take. They're going to provide what they're going to provide, and you can do fuck all about it. But it just leads me to the speculation of, I can't believe that this is being argued as a national security interest, because this is in nobody's interest. This isn't in the Ukrainians' interest. This isn't in the Americans' interest. This isn't in NATO's interest. It's not in Russia's interest. People dying and the potential of superpowers with nuclear weapons going at it is not a good recipe. It's not a good recipe, and I don't know the solution. I truly don't. I'm not a military expert. I'm simply looking at the writing on the wall, and I'm coming out to tell you guys something bad's a brewing. It hasn't come in the time frame that many people thought, but something bad's a brewing. And with this much money on the line from the United States, it shows you that they're not willing to give up this war and have a peace treaty. It's not going to happen. So if that's the case, let's play this out another 6 months. Let's say Ukraine really starts to lose this. I mean, definitively, to the point where they're losing land, they're retreating, they're down to a couple 100,000 soldiers, whatever it is. Let's say they start losing. What do you think happens? Do you think America doesn't want that money back on their investment? We've already heard BlackRock's got the contracts to be able to rebuild these cities, Bakhmut included, and all that when this war's over. So they've got a direct incentive to make their money back. This is an investment. This isn't charity. This is not charity. They want their investment back. So if it comes to a point where this goes from a somewhat stalemate like it is now to Ukraine beginning to lose rapidly and it falls apart, what do you think happens? Do you think America gives up and says, we just poured hundreds of billions of dollars into it, but, it didn't go our way. Okay, let the Ruskies take it. No. It comes down to direct involvement at that point. You can see them stocking up troops on the borders of Poland, and all these different countries are getting ready. And while it hasn't happened yet, as I said, if something drastically doesn't change and peace isn't found, this is an eventuality. You can bet your bottom dollar that. There's no other reality that's really possible. Obviously, the fog of war is thick, so maybe I'm missing something, but from my perspective, I don't think America is the powers that be, not the civilians, but the government, the people who are directly going to Congress like Biden and asking for the money to be able to continually fund this war. What are they going to do? They're not going to give up. They want their money back. This is an investment. This isn't charity. And, when it starts to crumble and fall apart, and the options are one of two, make peace with the Russians and lose land, or option two, get directly involved. Which option do you think the historically warmongering governments that we are living in are a part of, which option do you think they choose? You think they choose peace? No. They don't choose peace. They never have. Look at history. They don't choose peace. They send other people to fight their wars for them and die for them. They cash the checks, and that is the nature of this world that we live on, and it's very depressing. You guys probably saw in the news, maybe I'm breaking it for you, that I think it was last week, Alaska warships and Chinese warships together were encroaching in Alaskan territory. I don't know if they crossed the territorial line, but they're making their moves. They're sneaking around. You guys know that you've probably heard several occasions. We've heard government officials come out and speak about how classified the submarine aspect of the global domain is, and they don't share this information because it would compromise national security interests. But you better believe that Russia's moving around their submarines in Alaskan waters. China's probably doing the same. I guarantee you America is coming closer and closer in the Pacific, and they're all encroaching on each other's territory and stoking tensions even higher than they are. So I think they said that was the biggest group of warships that they've ever seen with China and Russia, at least encroaching in the Alaskan territory. That's not good. And I don't think the news reported on it all that much, but you got to realize these little actions, you could summarize them to say that they are nothing but bluffing in a way, but it shows you the level of seriousness that they're indiscriminately telling you, hey, you guys start a war with us. Russia and China, we're teaming up. We'll bring Iran in. We'll bring North Korea in. I mean, North Korean dictator has been going crazy lately talking about how they're preparing for war, and overall the political and the geopolitical tensions are rising to such a degree. The water is not boiling yet, but man, if something don't change drastically, it's going to be. I read here that the foreign aid that we provided to Ukraine is actually the most foreign aid that we've ever provided for a country since World War II. What does that tell you? Since World War II, it tells you we're on the cusp of World War III. That's how this shit goes. Look at history. It always starts in Europe, starts with a smaller conflict, then it gets wider and wider, and then everybody gets dragged in, and then before you know it, the entire world is at war. We don't even know what that looks like in World War III. We don't know what nuclear superpowers going head-to-head looks like. You would think the governments and militaries of the world would be a little more hesitant, wouldn't you? You'd think they'd be a little more hesitant if this is all about national security and protecting Ukrainian lives, protecting American lives, NATO lives, et cetera, et cetera. You'd think they'd be a little more hesitant, but for some reason, they're diving headfirst in without any hesitation. More money, more weapons, and stocking up more troops on the borders. So they're getting ready for this. I pray to God it doesn't happen because nobody wants to see this. You see people in the comments say, I'm ready, just get it over with. You're not ready, dude. You are not ready. You don't want to see what this shit looks like. I mean, go back and watch some documentaries of World War II and then multiply that by 500 billion because our weapons can do what the caused casualties in World War II in a month. They can do them in 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So my overall point from this video was nobody's safer off for this conflict. I think peace has to happen, but I don't think it's going to happen, and I don't think there is a good peace, a fair, just peace that is possible. So I want your guys' thoughts on this, but it's a scary times, man. It's scary, and as I said, it's not the movies, so it's not unfolding in the time frame that people kind of expected. That's the fog of war for you. It's very hard to predict these things, but we can see the writing on the wall. It ain't going good for Ukraine. How could it? The only way to possibly turn those tides is to directly get involved, and when you get directly involved, you cause a war. So damned if you do, damned if you don't. Guys, if you liked watching this content, you like keeping up with these subjects, UAP, UFC, World War III, geopolitical news, do me a favor, just subscribe to the channel, click like on the video. If you're listening on audio format on podcast apps, just click follow, leave a 5-star review. And lastly, I've got a fun little Discord group, just a few members in it from all across the world, or at least the United States so far, where we talk about this news every day. We share news with each other, ask questions, bring up topics, share our experiences, and just people who want to build a community like talking about this stuff. So if that sounds like something that could be appealing for you, we're going to be doing some fun stuff as the group goes. As it grows bigger. So if you guys want to be a part of that, the Discord link for Mixed Martial Arts is in the description to this video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Let's pray this thing gets resolved. I don't think it's gonna, but at the very least, I'm going to try to hop up on here consistently and talk with you guys, share my thoughts on it, because there's nothing we can do to stop it. We can simply observe and kind of sit there with our jaws open, sit there in awe at what this world is turning into, man. It's crazy stuff, but I love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back with another episode hopefully tomorrow. And I'm trying to get this to a daily show. I'm trying to record these in the morning so that I can crank these out a little more often for you guys. I apologize. Sometimes I go on little 5-day hiatuses, but life is busy. What are you going to do? All right, guys. Peace out. We'll be back soon. Take it easy.